Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this critical conversation as we build momentum towards the first ever International Early Childhood Development Financing Summit. My name is Elizabeth Lule, and I'm the Executive Director of the Early Childhood Development Action Network. This is a defining moment for the global early childhood community, a chance to move from fragmented conversations about funding to a coordinated global agenda for financing the foundation of our future and of the human capital that we need. During this webinar, we will highlight some critical initiatives aimed at increasing and improving financing for the early years, and to share the exciting news about the first ever International Finance Summit for Early Childhood. In this slide, you see all the various efforts that our partners are involved in and working together. It's a coordinated effort. It's all part of the same roadmap. We have UNICEF working on investments in the primary healthcare. We have a global costing task force of education and ECCE coordinated by Brookings Institution. We have UNESCO leading through a technical advisory group to prepare the global ECCE report and keeping to their promise that they made at Tashkent. ECDAN is, with all of you, is organizing a global technical financing forum through a global technical financing group. And we've also had an innovative finance working group. And all of this is under the big umbrella of the Act for the Early Years Campaign high-level advisory group coordinated by their world, and all the roads lead to the pledging summit in 2027. So why is this moment important? We're at a critical moment. We have a polycrisis affecting young children, their families and caregivers. Multiple intersecting simultaneous crises have impacted children's ability to thrive. Climate change, conflict, rising poverty, and the shifting geopolitics have made young children more vulnerable, strained the systems that support them, and placed new challenges on parents and caregivers, all within a constrained fiscal space that has shrunk dramatically in the past year with dramatic decreases in foreign assistance. And despite years of evidence demonstrating that early childhood investments yield the highest social and economic returns, financing remains consistently under-prioritized and under-coordinated. But we also know that sustainable, equitable ECD financing is essential to deliver quality programs at scale and build the human capital, especially in low and middle-income countries where the youngest children face the greatest risks. The summit represents a turning point, an opportunity to align political will, financial instruments, and cross-sector partners around a shared vision and measurable commitments. Today's session webinar is about building that momentum, spotlighting leadership, surfacing innovative financing models, identifying collective actions that can be amplified at the summit. Today, we are going to highlight several initiatives as shown in that slide to answer some questions and share ways that you can all get engaged. We'll hear from the UN partners, UNICEF and UNESCO, about their efforts. We'll hear from their world, who is leading the Act for the Early Years campaign, with the goal of mobilizing at least 1 billion in new funding commitments, culminating in the 2027 summit. We will also share about the Technical Financing Forum being organized to happen in Kigali in Rwanda in May. And we'll hear from country partners who are helping to build the momentum in their countries as well. The upcoming summit will not just be another event, it's a launchpad for sustainable systems and change and government-led commitments to support young children. Our goal is not to share evidence, but to secure commitments, inspire collaboration across ministries and sectors, and elevate early childhood financing at national, regional, and global levels. Each of you, whether from government, philanthropy, multilateral agencies, or civil society, has a role in shaping this moment. The momentum starts here with this community. Let's use today to channel our collective ambition into action and ensure that financing for early childhood development becomes a global priority and not an afterthought. So to begin today's discussion, let me introduce Divya Latta, UNICEF Technical Lead for Early Childhood Education in the Global Program Division of Education. Over to you, Divya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and greetings, colleagues, friends, and fellow champions of the early years. I'm delighted to be here today as we join our hands and come together to mobilize the transformative impact of the early years like never before. Do indulge me a little bit as I take you back a few months, in fact, to September 23rd, 2025, when global leaders, ministers, foundations, and civil society advocates gathered at UNICEF House in New York and also online at the event entitled Unlocking the Future, a Global Call to Invest in the Early Years. Co-convened by UNICEF and Their World with the government of South Africa as co-host, the event served as a pivotal milestone in the journey towards the first ever International Financing Summit for Early Childhood set for 2027. The event underscored the truly global and inclusive character of this movement. Over 20 high-level speakers and representatives from governments, multilateral agencies, philanthropy, academia, and advocacy networks highlighted the urgency of scaling equitable, quality early childhood care and education. I refer to this meeting because it gave us some very pointed and important messages that we should bear in mind as we work towards the summit itself. And let me just summarize that in a few points. The first very notable fact was that there is high-level political will that is reflected by our governments and leaders. From South Africa's systemic reforms to Ukraine's resilience and conflict, governments are embedding early childhood care and education in national strategies and are inviting collaborations to make this dream a reality. Not for only a few children, but for all children. Secondly, quality matters. Beyond expanding access, the focus is on stimulating environments, trained practitioners, and accountability for impact. And this point resonated with almost all the speakers who were at the event. Also noting equity as central, speakers highlighted the need to prioritize children with disabilities, those in poverty, indigenous communities, and those affected by conflict. Financing innovation is seen as a major aspect and enabler of this whole initiative. And again, from South Africa's Early Childhood Fund to the Global Smart Buys panel, solutions are being designed to unlock catalytic, cost-effective investments that can really move the needle for leveraging the power of the early years for our own futures and societal growth. And finally, the movement of champions, regional networks, philanthropy, youth, and cultural leaders are mobilizing alongside governments to create and sustain the momentum that we all are working towards. With those very insightful and indeed very important guidance that was shared by the speakers, the event showcased a diverse, united global coalition determined to make early childhood a priority for financing and policy reform. By amplifying both evidence and lived experiences, the gathering laid the groundwork for the 2027 International Financing Summit for Early Childhood, a turning point to secure the resources and political will that every child deserves, as Elizabeth also just emphasized and highlighted. As we go forward, do count on UNICEF colleagues, whether we are in country offices close to you, in regional networks, in regional platforms, or through global convenings to be alongside with you and really to push this momentum forward with the kind of emphasis and priority it deserves. Let me now yield to Ben from their world to tell us more about the suite of activities we are planning in the run up to the summit. It promises to be the most impactful convening to transform our world. So back to you, Brett, and looking forward to hearing from Ben on some of the details. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Divya. My name is Brett Weisel. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I'll be helping to just moderate a little bit and moderating the Q&A. So now I'd like to shift to Ben Hewitt, who is the senior advisor at Their World. And Ben's going to talk a little bit about the Act for Early Years campaign and how you can get involved. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Brett, and thanks, Elizabeth and Divya for setting up that introduction and the context for what we're working on. I thought I'd share three brief things. One is just around the campaign, the Act for Early Years, and the thinking behind it and how it's an opportunity for us as partners to come together and speak up for the youngest children who are often missing from decision-making moments and budgets. The second thing is to show a bit more detail around the journey to the summit. And there's a collective journey that we can go on as national coalitions, as partners in cities and states and countries around the world. And just thirdly in this is just show the opportunities for working together. I think, as you've heard in the introductions, there's certainly a sense that when we come together, our voice is heard. And that sits behind the thinking on the Act for Early Years campaign. The creation of this was very much in line with other movements that have been very effective, such as the climate movement. And with the climate movement, for example, you can have advocates for the ocean, you can have advocates for air quality and all the different issues, but together it's a very unified voice. And similarly with Act for Early Years, it's created as a campaign that's very broad. And so our issues can be highlighted within this. So if your particular focus is around disability inclusion or gender equity or workforce issues or preschool, there's an opportunity for this to be a big enough tent that we can all have our space within it. But actually, when we come to decision-making moments, we can have more impact because we're mobilizing around the world collectively, and we have more impact with one voice, even though it might have different issues and diversity around the world. So just in terms of the slide, let me just move to the next one. So the vision really matches the SDG 4.2 vision. All girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development and preschool education, vital for school readiness and lifelong learning and well-being. And so we're very much aligned with that process. But within the campaign, there's three areas. One is around unapologetically talking about finance. And so looking for the funding commitments, not just new funding, but also how do we ensure that money is better spent? And that's really important in a lot of contexts. The increased political prioritization is a second piece. So often the youngest children are missing in these key decision-maker moments. Too much is being decided without them being in the budget, being in the policy decisions space and forum. So making sure that the youngest children are represented by different stakeholders and that we elevate the status of early childhood as being such a strategic investment to all of the SDG goals. And then also conversations around the future. If we get this journey right together in the build up to 2030, it really cements the investment in the early years as fundamental to future goals and progress. And there's a lot of partners who have come together over the last few years to really shape this. So I think you've seen a number of partners in the introductory piece, but also you'll recognize some logos of partners all around the world bringing their influence to shape the strategy and the planning around this. And it's great to have a mix of academics, childhood networks, institutions, etc., from Lego to Sesame to Education International and others. So I think you'll recognize some of the partners. And even on a deeper dive, this is us working together. And we've got networks that are really established and coordinating what we're doing and supporting national advocacy, local advocacy around the world. And I think you'll recognize lots of the networks here that are on this slide, from Somos Crianza in Latin America to the Arab network led by Dr. Hassan around the world. So we've got this web of networks. So we really are a collective movement together. But I think the key thing is that the campaign is around how do we support local advocacy. So there's a real opportunity for advocacy and campaigning led by organizations in local communities. So what the campaign is, it's a movement of partners, of the movement of partnership. And often we don't have the resources to create campaign materials, campaign branding, because we're so focused on our delivery work, our research, our data. So it gives that element to what we're doing. And these are adaptable resources that partners can use. And it also gives us a shared narrative in the research around messaging and advocacy, the data and research. They're all tools that we can use collectively so that we can scale seeing best practice locally, nationally. We take that into regional forums, international forums. So we build that unique piece that we require is momentum around this issue. And then the last bit is unapologetically, again, this is fun and childlike. So in this approach, there is so much bad news around the world. There's so much that's deep, challenging issues that are being faced everywhere. And actually what we've tried to do is bring a dynamic that reflects the youngest children, that sense of hope, of positivity, of fun, childlike, but bringing the research and data, but bringing it in a fresh way. So we're not just bringing more bad news, we're actually bringing solutions, and we're bringing energy into this space. And that's really helping us to stand out as an issue. So here are some of our global youth ambassadors. I thought this photo represented the character of the campaign as well, and some of the partnership elements. So just to say, we do have shared campaign materials. You can find all of this on our website. And one of the things we've tried to do is, rather than have a very serious, actually just a graphic here before I move on, the font for the campaign was created by young children around the world. So we actually got young children to draw this, and then the clever designers turn this into the font that we're using. So even at that micro level, we're wanting to ensure that young children are at the heart of everything being presented. And this is an example of where their voices in their font start to challenge a slightly more serious message. So this is some of the branding that comes out from the campaign. At the heart of our campaign action at the moment is what's called a manifesto, and we felt that we couldn't have a serious and grown-up manifesto. It didn't feel like it fitted the brand. So we've created a very child-sized, small manifesto, and that's our first action, that we're going out to leaders and decision-makers to say, yeah, I'm in this. I want to join. Leaders of organizations, leaders of business, of philanthropy, city mayors, senators and others. So this at the moment sits at the heart of our first action, and we're getting leaders around the world to show their support for early childhood. And we're starting to see on social media this groundswell of support of leaders signing this tiny little manifesto that has our calls to action on it. And this is in all different languages. The campaign is adaptable and adapted, and you'll see this on the resource pages. And it's even a campaign that's not branded with one organization or another organization. This is a movement collectively. So here's an example for the Africa Early Childhood Network, led by Dr. Linerta Kengo and with a terrific team. But actually, for them to take this decision makers, they recognize this network. They know it and they respect it. So you can put your branding alongside the campaign branding. It's fully adaptable in that regard. It's not instead of what you're doing with your stakeholders. These are tools and resources where you can co-brand because your audience know you. So it's designed specially for that adaptability. So we'll share all these slides afterwards, but there's a website with the resources. You can sign up and get all the materials, and we'd love to partner with you. But feel that these are resources that you don't have to necessarily create where you are, but you can adapt them locally. Everything from presentations to event graphics to advertising to campaign materials. Do have a look around at those. Part of the campaign is also, as mentioned, we're building networks of champions, so champion ministers from around the world, champion mayors from around the world, first ladies and gentlemen, and there's a group of first ladies from across Africa there that have signed up as champions for the campaign. We've got the youth who you saw earlier in the photo. We've got business leaders coming on board and high-profile supporters like Roger Federer here, whose foundation is terrific on early childhood. I think many of you will know the Roger Federer Foundation. But it's us kind of elevating the issue of early childhood again and putting it into mainstream social media communications with these champion groups. So I'm just going to jump here to the next bit, just because we're short on time. I'm just going to share an update on the International Finance Summit, just to give a bit more detail on the journey to the summit. And I think this summit, as Elizabeth articulated so clearly and Divya at the beginning, it really reflects the moment we're in. So this is a kind of milestone moment on the journey to the 2030 goals. And we'll share these slides, so you don't need to kind of go into everything now, but it's a useful reference for after the meeting. But with this deadline approaching, we have to raise our game. And so there's an opportunity to look at all the best practice, the best evidence, and bring decision makers together to make those plans and commitments to get us to 2030 and beyond. So that's been agreed, and it's a terrific milestone in our shared journey. And so it gives us a chance to mobilize new and better financing. Let's talk about finance. Where is the finance coming from? How's it being spent? And just bring this into our dialogue where we haven't had that chance to prioritize it previously. And to come, there'll be the official announcement of the summit. So you're getting an early briefing that this will come. But in time, you will see that the summit is formally announced with hosts and co-hosts. You'll get the commitment guidance, etc. But we just felt it was very important that we, as national coalitions, as partners around the world, have that kind of sensitization moment where we're talking about this, planning for it, getting ready for it, not being the last to hear about it. So this is the opportunity to share with you all. And then the commitments really match the manifesto calls to action. These are around three key areas that are the enabling policies and the supportive services that underpin the nurturing care framework that we recognise. But this is universal access to quality primary health care in support of health, well-being and development. This is universal access to quality, inclusive preschool education, universal support for families, including affordable and quality childcare, child benefits and parenting caregiver support. So we're able to have engagement with our decision makers and say, well, where are we on this journey? So you may be in a context where preschool move ahead, but actually where we need to see further commitments is childcare. Or it may be that it's a collective systems approach to them all around planning. So there's flexibility in those areas that reflect the diversity of the early childhood development piece, where we've got different ministries doing different pieces, but this brings it together in that package. And then it also allows commitments to be domestic-led. So it's not a top-down donor event. It's saying these are national commitments, state commitments, or citywide commitments. We've certainly got a number of mayors interested in this, as they've got spending ability and decision-making ability in their cities. And then there's also a space for donors and businesses, philanthropy trusts to come in and say, we're coming behind this agenda as well. So the journey to the summit, this is what you'll hear about today. Firstly, this is us walking as a community of experts and coalitions and partners to start to kind of put this idea out there, start to talk about it and plan it. In April, there's a new piece of research that's being published called Smart Buys for Early Childhood. And I've got a slide on this at the moment because it's a useful tool in our advocacy. In May, you're going to hear about the Global Technical Financing Forum and the toolkit that's going to come out of that can be used for planning on the way to the summit. And then in September, we'll have a formal launch of this as a big public-facing moment at the UN General Assembly. And then in November, you're going to hear about the UNESCO Global ECCE report that puts new data out there and absolutely drives us towards the summit in 2027. So very briefly, the Smart Buys piece is about spending wisely, not just more. So this is being developed by the NYU Global Ties with support from UNICEF, the World Bank, Brookings, the Center for Global Development and others to say, okay, what are the smart buys? How do we simplify this for planning ministries, for finance ministries, so that in our advocacy, we've got that piece covered. We're very often very used to talking to sector ministries, but this allows us a conversation around the need for finance and why this finance works, and it's rigorous evidence. So that'll be published around the World Bank Spring meetings. We'd love to work with partners on sharing how you can use that in advocacy in your context as well. So last piece here is just a journey to the summit. So how do we fit on this journey? This is colleagues from Ghana who are at the Africa Early Childhood Network convening in Senegal just a week or so back, where we were starting to share some planning with a lot of Western Central Africa national coalitions and partners. The first phase is about us mobilizing and preparing. And you're going to hear a moment in a moment from colleagues in Colombia who have run a pilot on this around the campaign. So you'll hear some evidence about how that works, and also from Nigeria. So how do we start to mobilize around this issue, identify champions, bring in decision makers? And then we go into the phase of shaping commitments. So what could national consultations look like in regards to this? You've got the opportunity for finance ministry engagement in April, but then ministerial engagement in the run up to this summit. So using this summit as a journey that you can go on with your decision makers and giving them a platform to take this forward. And then in the third phase is around the announcement and delivery. And that delivery is a journey to 2030. It's not a come and go moment. This is about plans and commitments in that regard. So what are we looking for with national coalitions and partners? Firstly is that you lead this in your context. So you convene, you coordinate, you shape the ambition in your context, and we really lean on you to do that. Hopefully what we do is provide resources and tools and evidence that really bring power to your elbow in terms of driving that forward. You've got opportunities to engage your decision makers in terms of the smart buys, the toolkits we're going to hear about at the moment, and the evidence. And then also building the public momentum. Can we go on a journey together to start to build these champions? Let's get more media awareness, storytelling. So we really exist to support that local leadership to influence internationally. And so this is a real partnership movement approach. So I'm going to pause there and bring in the other speakers, but available now on the website is the campaign action pack. You can go to that with the resources and partner with us section, and then there's more to come soon. So sign up, we'll send all this through afterwards, but tools are already there for you.
Thank you, Ben, so much for that overview. And so now now that we've talked about the overarching campaign and the vision for the summit in 2027, we're going to drill down to a few initiatives and efforts that are going to feed into that campaign and shape that summit. And so first, I'd like to introduce you all to my colleague, Shekofe Zonji. She is the Global Technical Lead with ECDAN, and she's going to talk a little bit about the financing forum that Elizabeth and Ben had just mentioned. Over to you, Shekofe. Shekofe, do you hear us?
Thanks, Brett. Sorry, colleagues. Yeah, just one quick second. I am trying to screen share. I don't know where slide deck went. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Okay. Sorry, colleagues. All right, well, just gonna have to do that. All right, well, my name is Shekofe. Thanks, Brett, for the introduction, and thank you, Ben, for very nicely laying out the campaign that we're all sort of putting our, it's all hands on deck, and we're all sort of pushing forward. It's my pleasure today to present to you what we are contributing, what we're trying to contribute in that forward momentum together. So we're super excited to share with you the upcoming technical financing forum for young children. So investing in the early years between May 6th and 8th in Kigali, Rwanda. That's co-hosted by the government of Rwanda, UNESCO, UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the Africa Early Childhood Network, all in support for the Act for Early Years campaign that Ben just outlined beautifully. And I hope everyone is clicking on the Act for Early Years website, downloading things so that we can really all join hands together. So So it's my pleasure to share with you a little bit about the Technical Financing Forum. So while we're all working towards the larger campaign to unlock that financing, the Technical Financing Forum, the real aim for it is for us to be able to answer the question, what do we do with that money once we have it? And so it's a really deep dive into the technical aspects of financing for early childhood. So a little bit about the forum. Quickly, it's going to be from May 6 to 8, the first 2 days of the forum, and then the third day are going to be partner-led events. And that includes capacity building workshops, consultations on various global public goods that are being developed, roundtables, and so on and so forth in reaction to the forum. A little bit about the roadmap to the forum. As Elizabeth mentioned, there has been a global technical financing working group in place, which I'm happy to introduce to you shortly. Over the last year, that's been working to ideate and think about what does this moment call for, with the shift in financing trends around the world and shrinking fiscal spaces. What do we need to do to come together as a community? In addition, we recognize the importance of also engaging with the private sector. So with the Education Outcomes Fund, Brookings Institution, we have been co-hosting an innovative financing learning group. We've been engaging in a lot of cross-country and cross-sectoral consultations to identify what are the biggest gaps and demands from countries, and we really look forward to hearing from you in a couple minutes as well. We've been looking to pull together a financing toolbox, sort of a one-stop shop on all things financing and early childhood as well, that can become a global public good, and then of course culminating in the Technical Financing Forum. So really quickly, on the website, you can find the financing working group, which is about 17 plus organizations that have been meeting diligently month after month to work on this. So as Ben also mentioned, this is really a collective effort, and we're really excited to invite you into the tent and join the effort as well. So Brett, if you can pop into the chat the mailing list that's specific on financing, that if colleagues are interested in contributing or engaging in the financing conversation, to please join that. And we also will be having monthly financing town halls. We had one last week, and we'll have one again at the end of February and month after month, so that we can keep this financing conversation alive. So just quickly about the objectives of the forum. One is, of course, to raise awareness, especially to new audiences, about the importance of investing in the early years, especially from a human capital point of view. Second is to contribute to global processes like the Act for Early Years campaign, like UNESCO's ECCE, which you'll hear shortly, ECCE Global Report, and so on. Third is to facilitate a policy dialogue. Fourth is to promote cross-country learning, especially understanding what has worked, what hasn't, and really unpacking that. And fifth is to catalyze action. The key outcomes from the forum: one is we hope to have advanced global processes. Two, we hope to document the innovative financing models and solutions that emerge from the forum. Third is to actually have this financing toolbox that can be a public good for everyone to share and use and adapt and work through. And fourth is to develop the post-forum action agenda that takes us towards the Active Early Years Summit that is a contribution to the campaign. So really quickly, what's really important for the financing forum and the financing toolbox is for us to take a systemic lens to financing. And in order for us to really address that is to answer some key systems level questions. We want to understand what are the systemic blockages and bottlenecks to financing for early childhood. Why is it not flowing into early childhood services? What are the factors that influence that? We want to look at efficiency and value for money issues. What are the key spend better first actions that we can do already with the existing fiscal space? How can we make that more, thank you for that heart, whoever sent it. How do we reinvest any, and please feel free to send more hearts. How do we reinvest any savings already that exist? And then we also want to begin to look very critically at the range, look at the continuum of capital, and look at the range of financing instruments that are available, and look at which services are ready for which type of instruments. And then to look at a process of sequencing and scale. What are the short, medium, and long-term plans for financing ECD in different contexts? So as I said, we've been doing so many consultations, and there are a lot of shared frustrations. And I would welcome you to write your shared frustration for financing early childhood in the chat with us. Sometimes we do have political commitment to expand early childhood. In some contexts we don't, but in the contexts that are, and even global commitments, we have the Tashkent Declaration, the G20 Early Childhood Initiative. But sometimes that doesn't translate into the front line. So, some of the frustrations we have is, why don't commitments turn into reliable cash at the front line? Why does early childhood funding feel scattered and hard to pull together across sectors? Or why does money get stuck in processes rather than reaching providers and families, amongst others? So I want to ask all of you, in your context, what are the financing frustrations you feel for early childhood? If you can just pop that into the chat. And then Brett, if you can help me with the link to this, we'd love to capture some of that as well. So the forum intends to explore and unpack some of these, but the toolbox is where we hope some of the solutions and the case studies and the resources can live. So the goal of the toolbox, the financing toolbox, is to turn fragmented funding into a coherent funding portfolio. So moving from isolated individual one-off projects into clear set of policy and service level financing choices. We want to make sure that we're making decisions transparent and accountable, and ensuring that we're protecting equity and continuity of services right from the start. So ensuring not just spending is increased, but the spending is increased and reaching vulnerable groups, and ensuring stable and sustainable delivery. All right, I know I'm running out of time. So these are some of the core questions that we hope to able to address. Where and how do countries find savings before activating additional funding? And let us know if these are the right questions, or if there are additional questions you think that the toolbox and the forum should address. Again, this is a moment where we really want to hear from you. Which early childhood services match which types of financing instruments? Which services and platforms can be viably financed now? And then what are all the guardrails and service level agreements countries must meet to extend the scale and scope of financing? And then how do countries sequence reforms over the short to long term to maximize financing? So there's another quick survey that my colleague Brett is going to pop in the chat, and this is your opportunity to make a wish list. What tools do you need to address the financing challenges in your country? So if you can let us know with specificity, that would be great, because that would actually inform the design of the toolbox. So right now we're trying to kill multiple birds with one stone. We want to get your inputs on the forum as well as the toolbox. So if you can take a second to also put that in there, that would be great. So quick overview of the topics that should be covered in the financing toolbox. The first one is unblocking what the core challenges, the blockages, affecting systemic blockages for early childhood. Second is leveraging value for money to extend and improve early childhood. The third one is to actually explore the universe of early childhood services and make that shortlist that's relevant for countries. Fourth is, what are the financing related attributes of the services? Fifth is, it's actually a Rolodex of financing instruments so that we can understand what's a good match for what we want financing for. Linking the financing footprint with these instruments. The seventh one is to unpack the enabling conditions for instruments that we know we cannot access now, but we want to be able to access. So what is that process of getting to readiness? And the eighth one is country typologies and understanding how to do that sequencing of the short, medium, and long term. So modules 1 and 2 help us diagnose financing blockages and create fiscal space. 3, 4, and 5 to define the service, code the financing attributes, and assemble what the financing options are. 6 and 7, to shortlist financing instruments and lock in guardrails. And 7 and 8 is to turn financing into a sequenced country plan of action. So we really look forward as we begin co-creating this with you and countries to get your inputs as well. And I know, Brett, I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to stop here.
Thank you, Shekofe, for that. And I'm just going to move us along. We are a little bit short of time. So now we're going to shift to the country level and talk about, we're going to hear from some partners working at the country level and how they're taking up this campaign and how they're taking up the financing advocacy in their countries. So we're going to begin with Laura Alejandro Morales. She's an expert in early childhood at Red Papa in Colombia. And then she'll be followed by Katie Murphy, who's the interim director of Moving Minds Alliance, and she's going to talk a little bit about the work happening in Nigeria. Okay, over to you, Lara.
Hi. I think I don't have video. Maybe I just need a permission.
We do not have your video.
Yeah.
It was working earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. Thank you, Brett, and everyone. Well, as we have heard through this webinar, the Act for Early Years campaign, led by the World, offers a powerful and timely vision, placing investment in early childhood at the center of national development strategies and financial decision-making. In Colombia, and through Red Papas, a civil society organization with more than 20 years of experience advocating for the rights of children and adolescents, we have had the opportunity to work hand in hand with the World to implement this campaign at the national level as a country adaptation of the world's global effort, developed with their strategic guidance, technical support, and political alignment. Colombia is, in fact, the first country globally to implement the campaign outside the regional global framework. It functions as a pilot experience that demonstrates how global campaign can be translated into a national action without losing its essence, while at the same time incorporating meaningful local elements. So today, I would like to share how we did this and why Colombia is becoming a country-level showcase in how Act for Early Years campaign can be adapted, sustained, and scaled. So, a key milestone in this process was the national launch of the campaign, which allowed us to move from planning into the public and political debate. In August 2025, the campaign was officially launched in Bogota, Colombia, bringing together more than 500 people, both in person and online. The launch convened representatives for government, Congress, academia, civil society, youth networks, and national and regional media. It marked the public activation of the campaign and the manifesto, including symbolic signs and public endorsements from institutional and social leaders. This moment was essential to position early childhood investment not only as a technical issue, but as a shared national priority. Well, from the beginning, this was a shared process together with the World. Red Papas adapt the Global Act for Early Years campaign to Colombia under the name Actuemos por la Primera Infancia Prioridad 1 para Colombia, or in English, Act for Early Childhood Priority 1 for Colombia. This adaptation preserved the core narrative, the evidence-based approach, and the global objectives of the campaign, while firmly anchoring them in Colombia's institutional and legal reality. Particularly, the state of policy for early childhood established under the Law 8004. Very briefly, this law here in Colombia established 4 elements that were central to our adaptation. The first one, it is early childhood as a state responsibility, not a discretionary policy. The second one, a mandatory intersectoral coordination across health, education, nutrition, and protection, progressive and sustainable public investment, and accountability and follow-up in implementation. The central message remains fully aligned with the global campaign. Early childhood is not only a social priority, but a strategic and mandatory investment decision. that require political leadership, sustained financing, and accountability. So the Colombian experience shows how global leadership and national civil society action can reinforce each other. Red Papas act as the national hub, always within the Act for Early Years framework led by the World, ensuring coherence between global messaging and national advocacy. The campaign deliberately brought together ministers, Congress, academia, media, youth networks, and civil society around a shared investment narrative. Importantly, the focus was not only on awareness, but on firmly positioned early childhood on the public and political agenda, with a clear objective to legitimize investment in early childhood as a strategic and avoidable decision for the country, rather than an optional social policy. With the support of the academia and allied partners here in Colombia, we translate international and national evidence into accessible messages for decision makers and the public, highlighting early childhood investment as the key to long-term social and economic development. This was reinforced through a strong communications strategy, including audiovisual content, opinion columns, media engagement, and intergenerational storytelling. So also one of the clearest signs that this campaign is working has been citizen mobilization. We did not treat citizens as a passive audiences, but as active political agents. In this conversation about early childhood investment and through the manifesto for early childhood, families, educators, young people, and community leaders across the country publicly expressed that invest in early childhood matters to them and that they expect political leadership on this issue. By the end of 2025, more than 15,000 people had signed our online petition, which served to publicly demonstrate citizen support and to translate social concern into clear expectations for political leadership. This was not one-off moment, but a sustained process of dialogue, awareness building, and collective ownership. This demonstrates that public awareness around early childhood investment is growing. Citizens are not only responding to messages, they are demanding accountability. This social backing has been critical for engagement with Congress, the media, and the public institutions. So also looking at what has been achieved so far helps explain why Colombia is emerging as a country-level showcase for Act for Early Years. Together with the World and our national partners, we have generated more than 15 national and regional media appearances across television, radio, digital platforms, and opinion spaces. We provide training for journalists, strengthening evidence-based reporting on early childhood. We also participate in dialogue spaces with Congress and on accountability for early childhood investment, and we promote youth participation through youth-led initiatives. And we also build strategic partnerships, including a collaboration with Sesame Workshop for social media content. These achievements matter not only because of their scale, but because they demonstrate that a global campaign, when adapted with a strong local ownership and partnership, can activate institutions and citizens at the same time. So also we have some key lessons learned in this process. The first one of the main challenges has been the limited availability of timely, disagreed, and accessible data of early childhood investment, which complicates evidence-based advocacy and accountability. We also have know that progress depends heavily on political will. When decision makers are willing to lead, early childhood can move from a technical discussion to a national strategic priority. And third, mobilizing citizens requires translating highly technical policies and financing debates into a clear, reliable messages. Making this issue understandable is essential to build public support and a long-term sustainability. So together, these lessons reinforce the importance of combined evidence, political leadership, and citizens' engagement. And finally, for the sustained momentum toward 2027, as Colombia enters an electoral cycle, the work carried out alongside the World provides a strong foundation to ensure that early childhood does not disappear from the political agenda. Our focus now is to protect and expand the momentum built so far, keeping early childhood investment visible during the electoral debate, translating citizen expectations into political responsibility, and ensuring community between national and process and the Global Act for Early Years agenda. In this sense, 2026 is a bridge year connecting national debate with the horizon of the 2027 International Finance Summit for Early Childhood. And finally, the Colombian experience confirms that Act for Early Years works best when global leadership and national ownership move together. Working hand in hand with the world, Colombia has been able to adapt a global campaign with integrity, mobilize citizens, engage institutions, and build real momentum around early childhood investment. As we move toward 2027 International Finance Summit for Early Childhood, these country-level processes are not only complementary, they are essential, because global ambition only becomes real when citizens, institutions, and political leaders move forward together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, over to you, Katie.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here together and delighted to be with so many friends and colleagues. Can everyone see my screen? I think.
Yep, looks good.
All right. So I think this complements really well the example from Red Papa, and we're excited to be collaborating with them as well in Colombia. I'm going to speak to some experience we have linking national level and local level coalition building in Nigeria with the Act for the Early Years campaign. As mentioned, I am the interim director of the Moving Minds Alliance. The Moving Minds Alliance is a multi-stakeholder alliance advocating for better outcomes and equity for young children affected by crisis everywhere. And we really have multiple different initiatives, but a core focus for us is to understand at the very local and national level how financing flows to early childhood development in crisis-affected contexts, how we can improve the efficiency of that, how we can leverage and take advantage of opportunities for new financing through innovative finance or unlocking domestic sources of finance from public and private sector that may not have been typically utilized, and how we can ensure that our local actors and the refugees and the caregivers themselves are equipped with messages tailored to that context so that they can be most effective. So we did this to zoom out. We decided as part of our strategy to focus on 3 different focus countries for the next few years. And we've prioritized Colombia, Nigeria, and Syria. Obviously, across the globe, the needs are tremendous. We're not able to do this focused type of engagement and analysis in each of these countries across the globe. So we've identified 3. And this is through the result of a very rigorous process looking at the combination of needs, opportunities, as well as ensuring that we have some geographic and contextual variations and member engagement across our alliance. Many of you may have been with us in New York during UNGA, where we presented the global level early childhood development financing for ECD. We were able to utilize those results that was conducted in partnership with Causal Design to really drill down to what that meant at the national level. So for example, in Nigeria historically, or from 2018 to 2023, received 270 million. I just realized my camera's not on. I can do that. Sorry. Actually, I don't know. There we go. 270 million was the number 2 global recipient for early childhood and development funding globally. Number 5 recipient for humanitarian funding, 27 million. But given the OECD projections of a 30% decrease by 2027, we estimate that to be a reduction of 89 million US dollars just in the next 2 years alone. So while this obviously is concerning, and cause for attention, it also presents an opportunity for how we can think differently about ensuring that the needs of young children in these crisis-affected contexts are addressed in ways that are more sustainable and supported through local means. In consultation with Whole Child advisors, Ryan Burgess, we were able to do an analysis of the ECD financing within Nigeria and found trends that may be familiar to many of you in the countries where you work, where early childhood development remains fiscally invisible. So there's no system of tagging or identifying in larger sector budgets where ECD sits, and where particularly in crisis-affected contexts where those funding flows are going. We see that the aggregate spending trends are far below the global benchmarks. So only 7% approximately of the federal budget for education, about 5% for health. And we see a large amount of fiscal drag, 20% of the total federal budget for debt servicing, and about half of early childhood development in crisis is supported through public financing. So a large proportion is still provided through non-public sources, which may be fragmented or very short funding cycles or unpredictable. And one of the most dominant constraints we found, and again, I think this is consistent across many countries, is the execution failure. So only 37%, or roughly 38% of federal expenditure approved was executed in 2024. And we saw capital delays in Q3 of 2025 as well. So indicating that even when there is budget allocations for ECD, that they're not actually spending on them. So a real call to action to ensure that level of accountability and tracking. And then the state performance as well, we saw that the education budget execution averaged just 67%, resulting in 800 billion naira implementation gap. You can see the mismatch between the allocation per person and the needs. So where we see high level of allocation per needs in regions such as South-South, but very low where there's a high total population of IDPs and refugees in the Northeast. So we need to ensure that there is equitable resourcing where the needs go. We also see similar trends for rural exclusion. So the vast majority of funding is allocated to urban and accessible centers rather than the least accessible areas. So this led us to the national consultative meetings, and this took place in November of last year in Abuja. We had the great fortune of including a child advocate, Rejoice. She told her story as a child who was displaced at age 3 and her journey, and how important advocating for the needs of young children are, and to ensure that children like her who have dreams of becoming a doctor and helping other people are fulfilled. And I think having her and her family and others like her participate in this event was really powerful. We also included government from the federal and state level. We included donors, large INGOs, small community-based organizations, refugee actors, leaders, as well as public sector. So we had some local foundations, impact investors, and others who were really excited and mobilized to engage in this event. Several key gaps were identified: weak policy implementation, the siloed coordination, inadequate and poorly executed financing, lack of data infrastructure, donor fatigue, and limited inclusion of grassroots and local actors. And this is a visual of some of the participants in one of the days. This has brought us together for what will be a 3-year engagement. And we're really excited to be linked to the Act for the Early Years campaign and the March towards the 2027 summit. Having the national level conversations and bringing the state level data together in a way that links to something that the global community is all working towards, I think really helped inspire a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, how that these problems they're not confronting alone, that there's others who are working together on these very challenging and persistent issues, but that they have that support and connection. And working across different countries so that we can share experiences also lends to that incredible power. So over the next 3 years in Nigeria, we will be working on activating a unified coalition, building stronger policy and political commitment, supporting the national actors and the government for a national framework, doing more in-depth analysis on the financing and understanding further opportunities for innovative finance. Some of the donors who came were interested in creating pooled funds at the national level for early childhood with a particular focus on crisis, and then ensuring that we improve knowledge, awareness, and impact, connecting with the Act for the Early Years campaign. And of course, this brings together those grassroots actors, ensuring that the voices and experiences and the needs are represented and that they're within these spaces where decisions are made. And they will be really informing the rollout of the Act for the Early Years campaign at the national level as this coalition builds in the coming year. One of the highlights was doing the manifesto activity where the different participants shared some of their commitments, and it was, both fun, but also I think a really powerful way of bringing people together and looking at that kind of collective and personal accountability that we all bring to this experience. Just some other examples of the manifesto. An important aspect was our media partnerships and engagements. So Lola Ayanda, who's our communications lead for Moving Minds Alliance, we had the great fortune of her in-depth connections with some of these media outlets. We were able to do a morning interview, building awareness about the campaign and the national level coalition building, ensuring that they understand the objectives. We also did a radio show, and this will help ensure that they're bought in and excited as we roll out the campaign further in the coming years. So I will pause there, but overall, I think this is a powerful example of how we can really drill down into the local details at the state level, at the national level, and then connect them to this global campaign and ensuring that we are supporting equity and modeling how we can ensure inclusion of crisis-affected children in this global effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie and Laura, for really highlighting how this campaign and these efforts around advocacy and early childhood financing are being taken up at the country level. It's exciting to see that momentum build. Okay, now that we've heard from the country level, we're gonna zoom back up to the global level, and I'm going to introduce Rokhaya Diawara. She's the education specialist and ECCE lead with UNESCO. And she's going to talk a little bit about the ECCE report that was mentioned earlier and how it's going to help us unpack financing both at the global level as well as the country level. Okay, over to you, Rokhaya.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Brett. Good afternoon, everyone. My presentation will be short. Even I'm well known as a very talkative person. I just want to share with you how UNESCO is building momentum towards something historic. The first ever, we are talking about the first ever international financing summit for early childhood in 2027. And fortunately, and this is really amazing, we are having it just 5 years after the first ever intergovernmental conference on early childhood care and education. So this will be really the moment for us also to celebrate the Tashkent +5. Let me continue now on this dynamic and just to start with a very short story. The Tashkent Declaration 2022 gave UNESCO a mandate to collaborate with partners to publish biennial global report on early childhood care and education. The first report was co-published with UNICEF in 2024, and you can access to it via the chat if you have not already read it. Now, we are on the process for the second report coming in 2026, which will be co-published this time again with UNICEF, but also with the OECD. And this is also welcoming a broader contribution from a wide range of partners and also countries. This edition has a sharp focus, which is financing equitable and inclusive access to quality early childhood. It will showcase innovative solutions to reach the most marginalized children and underserved age group. And this is why really it is important for us to push for this inclusion and to finance something very specific, which is ensuring that financing is equitable and inclusive. Importantly, it will provide also a solution-oriented, this is our hub-oriented approach for government, stakeholders, and civil society. And hopefully it will elevate also ECE in the education and development financing debate, especially as we look beyond 2030. So what this report will talk about very quickly. First, it aligns with global commitment and position ECCE as a high priority level in global debate. Second, it provides a progress assessment on the realization of the SDG 4.2 and key recommend commitment. Third, it offers innovative financing solutions, and more importantly, it positions ECCE within a broader human right perspective, macro development and educational context, not only as a standalone service, but really to consider it as a foundational investment for society. The report is being developed through a rigorous process, and you can see that we are moving with this desk review, study, expert consultation, analysis, and projection. And you will see in the next slide, because we can maybe pop up very quickly on that one, you can see very quickly what we have in time of different timelines and key events. And what you are seeing here are specifically UNESCO event. And we are looking at possibility of having the ECCE in all the different debate. One very important for us is the 30th of March, you can see, which will be the SDG 4 high-level steering committee. And it's going along with also a G7 event in education financing. And we are pushing to ensure that already some element and some key information we are gathering from this global report will be included also in the general debate. So the ministers and other members of this high-level steering committee can be already informed about the process and will join us in this long journey toward the summit. And you will see also maybe the culmination of UNESCO event in this 2026, which will be the 20 November, representing the launch of the global report. Now, let us see globally how we can connect the different dots between this global report. But you have seen already several visuals in this perspective. It was included in Shekufi's presentation when she was presenting the route to the summit, and it was also echoed in Ben's presentation. But here you can see first the report will serve 5 critical functions. And the 5 critical functions for us is first, it will inform national consultation and policy dialogue. UNESCO 2026, UNESCO, UNICEF, and OECD will be a foundational evidence base for national and regional consultation leading up to the summit. And this is why in this graph, you can see in your right, for example, everything related to what we are doing and who are the different entities we are dealing with. You can see from the knowledge generation side to the partnership and the collaboration involving also or growing to regional dynamics. We want to pick up to the technical forum. We already talked about it, which will be in Rwanda, but we are also looking at having this ministerial commitment from the West and Central Africa Conference in also 2026 before going to UNGA. We've already some findings, and those findings can be, of course, culminating during the launch of the global report, but most importantly, will serve as also the strong piece for the summit in 2027. And this is why maybe I will finish with that one, and you have more information if you want by just connecting with us in the process. So we are moving with this global river. Over, Brett.
Thank you, Rokaya, for that. So first of all, we're going to move over to now the Q&A session. And so get your questions ready. There are a few in there already. But before we do that, can we show some more heart, some more love for our panelists? This was terrific. And these are difficult times. And I hope that we've been able to generate a little bit of excitement and interest. So please show some love for those panelists. Okay. So there are a number of questions here in the Q&A, and several are related to how you can engage at the regional and national level. So there's a couple of specific questions about South America, engaging regionally in South America and Central America. So Ben, if you could touch on that, as well as generally, how can partners on this call engage at the regional and national levels? And I'm going to add one more question to that, and I'm going to go to each of our panelists. And that is, think about what are one or two easy, simple ways that partners on this call can engage and be part of this movement. We need all of your voices. We need all of your activity. We need all of your engagement. And whether you realize it or not, every single person on this webinar is working on financing early childhood development in some way, shape, or form. So if all the panelists could think about that a little bit, what are one or two ways from your perspective, from your organization, from your network that can contribute to this overall movement? So first, let me go to Ben. And Ben, if you could just reinforce some of the efforts at the regional level and how that feeds into the campaign. Over to you, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. The main way of coordinating at the regional level is we've got a network of terrific regional early childhood networks. And so the questions coming up for Latin America, we've got Somos Crianza, but it'll be done in collaboration with others as well. So one of the key networks to be involved with is the regional network, and a number of regional convenings are being organized this year. So I was very fortunate to be able to join the Africa Early Childhood Network 2 weeks ago in Senegal, where they were rolling this out with 23 countries from across West and Central Africa. So there's organizing that's going on, but actually get in touch through the Partner With Us page on the Act for Early Years website. We can point you in the direction of the main convener in your area. And I think where we'll get to on this is in each location, you'll start to see a lead partner and then networks of partners involved in this. And we're going to be putting together a page on the website where the lead partner will be invited to set up on the website, so you can see in your area who to connect with. Because we don't need to double up on efforts, but actually when we work together in partnership, we bring really different skills. So some skills in a local context are very good on communication, some on advocacy, some on research, some with champions. So working together on this in the partnership model will be important. But a couple of things. One, use the campaign as a convening tool. So bring together groups to discuss it, to plan it, a bit like Katie's presentation in Nigeria. It's a good opportunity to do that and to sensitize partners on the journey to the summit. And then we can engage more formally, and the regional networks are, they've got a terrific mapping of every national coalition and lead partner in countries. And when we have that page set up, we'll also then be able to spot, well, where are the gaps? Where are we missing? And actually, where would we want to start to invite in partners where we think we've got gaps? So that's probably a description of how we're going to be coordinating and operationalizing this. And then on the website, when you sign up as a partner, there's also 5 easy steps. So there's a little sheet on there. What are the first 5 steps that we can take? So if you can't find any of that, I'll put my email address in here and ping me a message afterwards and I can connect.
Thanks, Ben, for that. And so as you heard, there are very specific channels and processes to engage. But I also want to hear from our panelists, from your perspective, from your line of work, what are other actions that partners on this call can take to expand financing, to contribute to this movement, to contribute to the summit specifically? So, Elizabeth, why don't we start with you?
No, thank you, Brett. I think the partnerships is the way to go about it. Together, we're much stronger in building a global movement, but also it's bridging across different movements. In the chat, our colleague Mercedes raised the issue that this is a right also, and the governments have ratified global agreements. How do we make sure that, early childhood development and early childhood education and learning is seen as a right and that governments are obligated to actually comply with what they have ratified? But I think the important thing is that we are all on the same journey. Evidence is being produced through obviously the UNESCO report and what UNICEF is doing as well. We have great examples of what is happening in Colombia, building those national coalitions. We also have national ECD networks that can actually join to build a vibrant and dynamic movement. But at the end of it all, we need to create the awareness, we need the political commitment, but we need to also have practical tools that actually address some of the issues that were illustrated by Katie. The budget execution, the public finance management issues where money arrives in the last quarter and not all of it is spent, and where sometimes ECD is deprioritized when other things come up. But also to think out of the box. How do we make sure that we are merging private sector investors that are now looking at investments through a child lens, and that government plays its role in actually de-risking and regulating the quality that is expected from private sector partners. So building those partnerships, looking at innovative financing, blended, braided financing, and other non-traditional financing, so we can reach as many children and really achieve that universal coverage. And the other point that came up, parents need support. We had an amazing meeting in Madrid 2 weeks ago, the first ever caregiver forum that also generated another movement of how we can support parents. So together we can do it. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So partnerships, innovative thinking, innovative financing, new ways of thinking. I love hearing all of it. Okay, Divya, given UNICEF is working in almost every country in the world, tell us, do you have anything to add?
Thanks, Brett and Elizabeth. I couldn't agree with you more. I think you nailed it. And I think partnership is going to be definitely a resounding thing, which I think all panelists will allude to. So fully agree with you on that. But maybe two additional things. Well, first of all, on the partnership itself. So I would say, do reach out to us in UNICEF. My colleague Chemba, who leads the Global Early Childhood Program, is also on this call, and myself, and reach out to us with your ideas, and we can then connect you with the right people in UNICEF. We have country offices in more than 120, 130 countries in the world who work on the early childhood issues. So, and then of course, there are other fora that we can connect you with. But two other points I want to emphasize. First of all, as Elizabeth also alluded, the evidence and models, pathways are what we are looking for. This is not simply just talk. It's actually walking the talk, and we are looking for those effective, proven pathways that have worked for you. So do reach out where there are these kind of opportunities to leverage your direct experience available. And we will find a way to both elevate it in the different reports and evidence we are pulling together in different. You heard of the Smart Buys, you heard of the UNESCO, UNICEF, OECD joint report, and many other avenues. And my final point is really the voices. There are many voices that really care and see the value of investment in the early years, and from their own vantage point add not only the strength of their positioning, but also very valuable insights that can really inform our campaign and movement going forward. These could be teachers, these would be parents, of course, and also, several other kinds of leaders. There may be mayoral initiatives. In New York, we see a lot of momentum around that, which has found space in social media, but there are several others. So do align us and link us with those voices. We would like to use this platform to elevate their advocacy and also really join hands so that we can make a solid impact. Whenever you want, Brett, I'm sure Chemba will want to also add to this list. Thank you very much. Really excited to take this forward.
Thank you, Divya. Before we go to Chemba, let's hear from Laura from the Colombia perspective. And Divya, by the way, I love hearing about the grassroots voices. I think it is non-negotiable, right? Movements can't really be led at the global level. They could be guided and supported, but for them to work, they need to be bottom up. Okay, Laura, from your work at the in-country in Colombia, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, first of all, thank you for this space. And I think that just like having this experience at the local momentum, it's so great to inspire to other countries to do the same and start like implementing this kind of campaigns and advocacy, mostly with young people and with Congress, ministers, media to enhance the early childhood investment. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And Katie, working in crisis settings, what unique lens does that provide in terms of action engagement, which looks probably pretty different than other countries?
Yeah, thanks so much. And I just wanted to really echo Elizabeth and Divya and Laura's points. I think partnership is key. We are stronger together. We all have our unique contributions and ways that we can support each other. And I think really understanding how we can work together in coordination and lifting up the voices from the local communities and those who are most effective is so, so critical. I think from the crisis lens, I think we all care about equity, right? We want to ensure that these high-level commitments, this is such a huge opportunity for the world and for our community to make the youngest children front and center of the global sphere, right? But we want to make sure that it's not just a high-level commitment that doesn't lead to actual change at the local level for those who need it the most. So when we think about equity, when we think about achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, that includes a clear focus on crisis and conflict and displaced populations, because we know that their situation is amplified, they are often excluded. And so understanding how to do that at the local and state level is difficult work, and it requires that deep engagement within countries. So I think as a global community, if we can also map who's doing what in which countries, ensuring that we're supporting and not duplicating efforts, but really doing that hard work so that we're not just left with high-level commitments that don't lead to real outcomes and impact for children that are sustained. So just really ensuring that that is a priority for all of us. Thanks.
Thank you, Katie. And thank you for mentioning commitments specifically, because commitments are just words on paper unless they're implemented and unless they're financed. And so that requires all of you on this call, on this webinar, to continue to hold government and hold decision makers accountable. Okay, Rokaya, over to you. Anything to add or reflect on from UNESCO perspective?
Thank you, Ben. I think a lot of things have been already said by colleagues. I just want maybe to add 2 more points. One is also about the capacity development. Particularly at country level. We did very recently at UNESCO level, when we were preparing this global report, we did a kind of analysis of education sector plan, for example, to see how ECCE was included in that plan to ensure that it's properly funded. And we were really disappointed with the result, the findings of this analysis, and we realized that 2 elements are maybe leading to that situation. One is the one who are taking decision, who are preparing plans, and who are taking decision to move on are not always informed properly on what needs to be done on ECCE to be included, or what are also the benefits of having ECCE. I'm talking about the education sector, for example. And this is one aspect. Second is also, we realize that the two communities, the one who are taking the decision, the planners, the one in charge of planning at the ministry, the other ones which are in the ECCE community doing advocacy, etc., are also not enough informed about the planning process. So the two groups are not talking to each other. And this is why we started from UNESCO perspective to strengthen capacity of the ECCE to better understand the planning cycle and all the other dimensions, so they can play their role. And the other way also, we opened and we are organizing currently a course for planners also to be informed about the ECCE planning process and how to get in. This is one. The second and last point I want to emphasize is also using our collective convening power. Most of the time, as UNESCO, we are talking about the convening power, but we know also all the other organizations, we have it. The point is, most of the time also, we are talking to ourselves, and we are not opening and inviting also new interlocutor to this debate for ECCE. We have been dealing with Minister of Education, but we were leaving out also the others, which are the mayors and other actors, which are also very important in the process, including parliamentarians, etc. And this is why we are really putting now more emphasis to bringing also those other stakeholders, those other leaders on the debate, so we will have different push for the advancing this ECCE financing. Over.
Thank you, Rokaya, for highlighting capacity strengthening, but also the need for sectoral and cross-sectoral planning. And I recall seeing a comment in the chat that, often early childhood is left out of those sectoral planning efforts. And so it's so vital to ensure that that ministries are working together and cross-sectorally to ensure that early childhood is prioritized. Okay, last but not least, we have Chemba Raghavan, and she is the global lead for early childhood development at UNICEF. So Chemba, as you wrap up and conclude the webinar, please also share any reflections from the conversation we've had today. Over to you, Chemba.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks to EGDAN and all the partners for this fantastic convening. So I want to start with that, and really it's been extremely enlightening and insightful. Thank you to the audience for all the questions. Those were really, really on point and very sharp. So thank you for making us think together. I know that Elizabeth and many people that talked today talked about the challenging context that we are in, the declining overseas assistance, the constrained fiscal environment, the dwindling resources. We all know in this panel, in this room, that ECD is one of the most strategic investments from a neuroscience perspective, from a social returns perspective, from an economic perspective, from the human capital perspective. We know all this. Does everyone in our countries know this? So I think it's really, really critical that we take forward whatever we learned today, not just preaching to the converted, but to the ones that either are not aware of this, but are, awaiting the evidence on that. There is no dearth of evidence. We have it. We all have it in our toolboxes, in our repertoires. We have to take this forward in a digestible form, in a way that is simple and understandable, not just for our governments, but for our civil society partners. There was a question on implementers. We need to take that forward with our implementers to empower those that are working on the ground in local contexts to be able to advance the case for ensuring financing for the youngest children of the world. We really, I think there was struck by a question on what is the role of the implementers in this process. Are we only advocating? No, we're not only advocating. We're, of course, learning as we go along from implementers, from people on the ground that have faced the barriers, that the challenges and the solutions that seem to have worked for them, and the ones that don't. So many of us don't have to spend our times reinventing the wheel. So every aspect of those pieces is important in this journey. I actually am walking away today with immense hope. I think I saw over 200 participants. That is 200 participants that are going to amplify this journey towards that outcome of that summit that we are all hoping will result not in blah blah, not in just documents that nobody reads, not in commitments without action. We are looking for a summit where we have pledges, that we have actionable items that come out from that meeting in 2027. You know, at UNICEF, we talk about three pillars: policies, programs, and services, and parenting support. Many of you have already pointed to parenting support as very key. I want to add a fourth today, and that's partnerships. That is the power of this webinar today, that we are all engaging and we are speaking in one voice. It's 200 voices today that are listening to this webinar. It's 200 voices that are going to amplify these messages to thousands more when we go back. You heard from UN partners. We all heard from the Act for the Early Years campaign and the whole journey and where we are going to end up. We heard from EGDAN on the tools and resources and that, you know, that toolbox that we are going to work with. You heard about the technical forum and the several other events that are being planned as lead-ups. These are not unconnected events. These are connected, joined up events where we are all speaking with one voice, asking everyone to come along with us on this journey to highlight the need for financing for the youngest children of the world. From Colombia and Nigeria, we heard very concrete examples of how local global synergies and coalitions really are working on the ground. So, friends, I think we have everything we need to go forward from this webinar. We were reminded of the journey, but also of the final outcome that we're all working on. That not just the pledging summit, but what is going to follow from that in a post-SDG world, in a world where there are challenges. We are the ones that are going to ensure that the youngest children are not going to be left behind. And with you all as champions walking with us on this journey, this coalition of champions, we're really going to make this happen. So from UNICEF and all of our partners here, I can say that we're all on standby to support everyone with the recent cutting edge evidence, our analyses, advocacy resources, toolboxes, toolkits, practical resources to help us speak with that one voice. And we are also on standby to learn from you all. So please reach out, as Divya mentioned, please reach out to any one of us with solutions you may have, with challenges that you may have overcome, because that is how we build a moment. So sincerely hope I can ask you for three things as you go forward. One, please brief your senior leaderships in your workplaces about this movement and what you heard today. Please amplify the actions and calls that are coming out of this movement with your partners, with your networks. Advocate, and I think Ben mentioned the word unapologetic. We have to be unapologetic. Remind people of the right of young children to have this environment in their lives. Sustained investments in young children as foundational for health, nutrition, education, safety, protection, prosperity, and even peace. We have all the evidence. We have to take this forward. And please, third, do not forget to tell us, based on your experiences, how you are advocating, what the challenges and barriers you have faced in financing for ECDR, but also the solutions that you have brought forward. What do we know from implementation on the ground about what has worked and what hasn't? We are eager to hear, and we are eager to co-construct this journey with all of you. To all our partners and to my family of co-organizers here, huge thanks. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience and such an engaged audience. We need every one of you and your amplified networks. Thank you. And back to you, Brett.
Thank you, Chemba, for leaving us with those concrete actions and maybe the most important part of all of this, which is a little bit of hope and inspiration. So that concludes our webinar. We will follow up with everybody who registered with the recording, the resources that were shared, and the slides. And I hope that we continue to stay engaged. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.